So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another episode of Is It That Bad? Where we take a look at an album and we say, is it really that bad? And today we're going to talk about a band that is notorious for controversy, and it's Motley Crue with their 1997 album, Generation Swine. And a little background on this album. This album was the return of Vince Neil after he got fired after Dr. Feelgood. And initially, both Nikki Sixx uh, and Tommy Lee didn't want to work with Vince Neil again, but there was a lot of pressure from the label because the album before that, the 1993 self-titled album, did not sell well with John Corabi because John Corabi wasn't a star. And I gotta tell you, I actually liked that album that they did with John Corabi. I thought it was a ballsy album, but yeah, the fans didn't like it. So in 1997, Vince Neil returns, and we have Generation Swine. So again, I'm joined by Tom the Green Man and JC Rock and Metal Review. So hey guys, how are you today?
Doing good.
Yeah, all good.
Thanks.
All good here.
Good, good. If I sound a little bit tired and sorry, it's because I was watching some punk bands yesterday, but it's good because we're reviewing Motley Crue, so I should be as wasted as possible. But let's do the drill. We do the free rounds. First, we talk about what we thought when this album we heard it initially. Then we pick three, or we can do four songs. I think we can do four. And finally, we say, uh, like, is it that bad or not? And we give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So I think that for this one, we should start with JC because I think JC has the most knowledge of Motley Crue. So JC, what do you think about this album when it came out?
Okay. I was a big fan of Motley Crue, in the 80s. I had a Dr. Feelgood, and I was really into that. But I kind of forgot about them. But by the time the 90s rolled around, I didn't really pay any attention to them. I didn't really pick up the self-titled one. I actually like that album a lot. I've listened to it later on, but I didn't really pay much attention. I know when this one came out, I didn't really pay attention either. So I listened to these albums much later. So maybe the first time I listened to them, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. So I don't know. I guess my impression was it was very different. It's like the 90s. Everything that came, every band that came out in the late 90s were doing. They wanted to try to do something either alternative or industrial or either whatever was going on at the time. So I think that's what they were going for, which is why this sounds very different. I It could be compared to something like that Guns N' Roses album we did, Chinese Democracy. Like
Yeah.
they're trying to do something so different, but it just doesn't work. I think when these bands they try to do something that's completely weird. Like they can either pull it off or they can't pull it off. And I think especially when a band is kind of forced to be together. I know that this band, they were happy with John Corabi, and then the record label, they said, no, you got to bring Vince Neil back. And they didn't really want him in the band, but it was like, okay, we'll work with him. There's no other choice. So we'll do that. So I think when you have that kind of situation, usually the albums, don't turn out very well. And also, I think this album, they're having the Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee are doing vocals a lot in this album, so it's kind of, I guess they're trying to make it like a, how the band Kiss used to do, how every member would
Mhm.
have some vocals on their songs. I think they were going for something like that, and I'll give you my final thoughts at the end, but I
Of
think it's
course.
just something that didn't really work. So that's my initial thoughts.
Don't hold back, John. Okay, well, what about you, Tom?
Yeah, I think as John's pretty much summed up, this is a band I think are in a bit of turmoil, and any band which has, there was a lawsuit involved here from Karabi, and
Yeah.
obviously they were a bit unsettled, and I think mass firings had occurred, hadn't they? Bob Rock got fired as producer before this album, so it feels like there was obviously a lot happening going in, and any band with that sort of unsettled prelude or preamble to recording an album, you always think the album's probably not going to be that great. I mean, you saw it like I think Chinese Democracy is a really good comparison with Guns N' Roses. I mean, it's a similar sort of situation in a way, and even Saint Anger, where that was like there was a lot of sort of friction and tension in that album as well. So I think that's sort of a good contrast. For me, this album is definitely exploring the band's it feels like trying to move with the times and keep up with alternative rock that was happening around that time, do something a bit different, sound a bit different. And as John's saying, it doesn't really work. It doesn't really come together as anything that really would be eye-opening, or it would be better. They just feel like they're just not trying to be. It felt like they're just not trying to be themselves. They're trying to be another band that they aren't. And I think that was the biggest problem for me. Is it just sounds like they're just not trying to be the bands that they actually kind of are. I think that sound that they had in the 80s to me is the sound that made them. Whether or not you love it or hate it, the whole glam metal thing, it is what it is, and it's what they, I think, were best at. And this is just kind of them going a bit boring. That's sort of my sort of initial thoughts from the album.
Yeah. So I didn't listen to this album when it came out because I didn't. Well, I just listened to the classic Motley Crue stuff. But I remember listening to the song "Afraid," which was the initial single for that album. Because I didn't buy that album, but I bought. I think like a few years later they took out like a greatest hits or something. And I think I bought that one, and it had that a song from Generation Swine. But like you said, they were forced to work again with Vince Neil. And you know what? When you're not with someone, like you can't force you can force it because it sounds like it sounds forced. And yeah, also when I first listened to this album in full, I listened to it years later, and I thought it was like it's called Generation Swine. So if you're gonna call an album Generation Swine, give me the fucking swine. Because there's some songs that, oh yeah, we're evil, we gotta do some drugs, we gotta party, and then there's other songs like Brandon, my son. You're like, what the fuck is this? And I think I would blame a lot of this album on Tommy Lee. You know why? Because Tommy Lee at that 90s, he was the biggest star of Motley Crue. He had the sex tape. He had another like band, if you guys remember, called Methods of Mayhem, which was like a rap with alternative, and it had a terrible song called "Get Naked." Uh, so,
I think I remember that. Yeah.
oh yeah, it's pure crap. And I think he put a lot of like I don't know. I hear a lot of Tommy Lee on this album. He then have some solo albums that I actually enjoyed, but yeah, this is an album that they don't. Usually Motley Crue, their songs were like, we like to drink, we like to party, we like to do drugs. We are unpredictable, and this was like we're Motley Crue. We did that stuff, but now we are sensitive. We are like is this their emo album? I'm like, what the
Yeah.
hell? Because I found it's pretty uneven. We're giving a lot, and we're obviously talking about this album because you guys voted for it. So now let's go to the second round, and we're gonna pick 4 tracks. So JC, which tracks for you are the worst here?
Okay, I'll start with the opening track, "Find Myself." Just very weird. Nikki Sixx is doing like the first verse, and then Vince Neil comes in, is singing, and he's like saying all these like curses, and it's just kind of weird. And it's just a type of song that it just doesn't really have any particular rhythm. There's one point in the song where like there's like this like kid like kind of like trying to scream into the microphone or something like that. So that was very strange. My next pick is going to be track 3, "Flush." This one, I think they're trying to sound like the Stone Temple Pilots and like the late 60s Beatles. So I think it was just kind of weird. It wasn't really a good song. They were also like doing some space rock towards the end of it. And first of all, it doesn't sound like anything like Motley Crue. And it just like there was like no like cohesive like rhythm to it. It was just kind of weird. And then let me jump ahead. I'm gonna go with track number 9 with "Let Us Pray." This is them trying to do new metal. I know Vince Neil he's kind of like doing like kind of like a rap in the verse. And then they're using like these like electronic or like metalcore types of sounds, and just the vocals don't work. I think like Vince Neil, he could only do like one kind of vocal. Like, I mean, he needs to sing just that like 80s glam, and they're doing like all this like different stuff. And if you listen to the drums, they even have these like, I was thinking like these like Saint Anger style drums where like it just sounds like that. Those like trash can drums. I think like they're like the first band to do that.
But this was
So
before
that
Saint
was weird.
Anger.
Yeah, no, and that I was thinking the same thing. That's kind of funny. And so we're gonna pick 4. One more. I'll go with "Shout at the Devil" 97. It was completely unnecessary. The original is great, and they turned it into like an industrial song. It was just like very loud, unnecessary, and they could have left it off the album. I mean, they didn't need to cover it, and if they weren't going to cover it, they could have made something that was closer to the original. It just they kind of tried to like turn it into a 90s song, and it just didn't work for me.
Yeah,
Uh, that's it. Those are my
just
4. Yeah.
unnecessary filler of a song.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about you, Tom?
Yeah, for me, my first one is Confessions. I just found the chorus, I think, just annoying. I mean, and the track I just found it kind of slow and dull, and nothing very interesting. I think the chorus is something like going, ooh, going down. It just did that a little too much to my liking. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, that maybe wasn't that bad a song, but for me, it's just one of those songs that I don't like. I think I agree with JC on "Let Us Pray" and everything that he pretty much said. I also think the lyrics are kind of cringeworthy, but that was sort of Motley Crue's thing to a degree, that their lyrics were often a little bit cringe. But the song itself as well is just not really all that great. Like they were trying to be maybe a little bit more with the times, with the sort of new metal sound that JC mentioned. I also found that "Glitter" was a weird one in this album. This sort of electro pop thing, and it made me think, well, had they been listening to, before recording this song, were they listening to something electro pop from the 80s? I don't know, a bit of Erasure or something. What inspired "Glitter"? It just feels like a completely random song in the album. Again, I didn't find it offensive or anything. I didn't necessarily think it was terrible, but it's just weird, and didn't really work for me in the context of the album particularly. The other one I've got is, I think, the sort of sappy ballads, Brandon, at the end of the album.
My son.
I mean, yeah, I get it. It's like a tribute, I'm assuming, to his son, right? Um, and I get that and stuff, but I don't think its execution was particularly great, and it just yeah, I just didn't really like that song, to be honest. It just felt a little too sappy. And if I was Brandon, I'm not sure about I'd be appreciative of that.
That's okay, Tom. You know why? Brandon, and like few years later, kicked Tommy Lee's ass. So I'm sure that he's like kicking his ass and like, damn you for writing that crappy song about me. I hope my son doesn't do that to me in the future.
Okay.
It
So
depends
yeah,
whether you
so
write a song like that
yeah,
for
yeah, I'm not gonna write a song about him.
him.
So yeah, so those are your four picks, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I think I got through four, did I? Confessions,
yeah,
Let Us Pray, Glitter,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
Brandon.
You know,
Yeah.
when you say confessions, I think about that Usher song. Like, these are my confessions. I'm like, yeah, that's a better song, by the way, than that one. So
Yeah.
let me pick four ones. I'm gonna pick a few that are similar. So Find Myself. That's a weird fucking opener because like Vince Neil's like, I'm a crazy motherfucker. I'm like, oh my God, the lyrics are cringe. And you know what I feel about kids in songs. I think this is child abuse. They took one of their kids and they're like, yeah, like scream something into the mic. And he's like, I gotta. And I'm like, yeah, that's cute if you're like for your kids and you alone, but to put it in a fucking album and to have it at the start of the album, it's a very weird album opener. And musically, like I agree with JC. It doesn't have like rhythm to it. It's just like all over the place, and it sounds like a demo, like 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 you're gonna put a demo to start the album. So yeah, yeah, it's bad. Then I would go with Glitter because first of all, it's a ballad and uh, like Vince Neil, like why do you date strippers? They're not gonna stay with you. They are strippers. So if someone is named Glitter, Star, Unicorn, you know they're a stripper. They're not built for a long lasting relationship. Like I think Vince Neil and Brett Michaels, after 30 years on the road, should learn this. Like, yeah, it's not gonna work. And the song, yeah, it's first of all, it's named Glitter. I don't know. There was a Mariah Carey movie named Glitter. So was
Yeah.
this before the Mariah Carey movie? I can't remember. But
No, yeah, it was before. Yeah.
I'm gonna say parts of the lyrics. Glitter, don't you leave me. Please believe me. I only want your love. Glitter, you're my lover. I'll have no other girl. I only need your love. Let me get my barf back. Like this is
Yeah.
She's beyond comprehension. It's such a bad track. So Brandon, like I get the sentiment. You know, I'm a father and I love my kid, but that song, I don't know why. Every time that I hear a song, someone playing piano now, I just think of of that Mario Brothers Bowser song because it's like Brandon, my son, and there's a part on the song that he's like, "You came out from your mother, which I did a few years ago. I recorded the sex for you. Now you can look at it, Brandon, my son." Like, I'm like, he should have done that because there's a part where he says, like, you came out of your mother. I'm
Yeah.
like, really? Like, like, do we need that in the lyrics? Like, I don't think Tommy Lee is a thespian. Like, like his lyrics capabilities, I don't think are that deep. So it's a nice try. It's a beautiful gesture to his song, but years later, it backlashed when his song kicked his ass. But yeah, it's weird song. Uh, I agree with JC. Shout at the devil shouldn't be there. But it didn't offend me that much. I just thought that why is it there? And the other one that I didn't like was Beauty. Like she's my beauty. Yeah, it's just boring. So those are my four picks. So now we're going to the last round where we give our final thoughts and we vote on it. So, JC, final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna say thumbs down. Yeah, it's a bad album. I think out of all the songs, I think like I like Afraid. I'll be honest with you. I think that one is pretty cool. It's catchy. And like I can listen to that one again if it comes up in a playlist. I wouldn't remove it or anything. But otherwise, I can't really find much on the rest of the album that I think that I like. Maybe track 4, Generation Swine. That was okay. That's okay, listenable. So they have these like short songs like Anybody Out There, which is like punk rock, or then Rocket Ship, but like a space rock, kind of like a David Bowie kind of a space oddity type song. I think those are like fairly listenable, but as a whole, I think it's just a complete mess. It's just a situation of the band not getting along. They're not in a good place. It was kind of like forced by the record company. I mean, they should have done another album with John Corabi, and it probably would have turned out pretty well. But this one is definitely going to be a thumbs down for me. So those are my thoughts.
Nice. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think Afraid is one of the songs I quite liked. And the song I emailed you about yesterday, Hector Rocket Ship, now kind of going a bit against what I said earlier, that this is another song which is kind of out of place on the album. It's another weird diversion on the album. And it kind of sounds like they were trying to be a bit Britpop. There's even a hint, I said, of shoegaze. And it's not a great song, but I felt that if somebody else was maybe, I don't know, I felt like a different singer or something, that it had potential for me, actually. Weirdly, I thought that song could have been built into something quite good. That's just my gut feeling on it. But yeah, there wasn't a lot. I mean, A Rat Like Me, I didn't mind. I think that one was one that I thought was okay, a bit like Afraid. But yeah, otherwise, I think I don't think this is the worst, necessarily in the worst of the bunch we've listened to for this series.
No.
But it's still under the bar, just about. So yeah, I think it is bad, but it's not awful. That's my final verdict.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know it by now, Tom loves shoegaze. Yesterday he was emailing me like, Motley Crue has a shoegaze song, so we call it Crewgaze for that rocket ship one. But yeah, I think this is a very uneven album. It's not the worst thing that we've heard here, and I like Afraid. That's why that's why that song is still in their best hits. They include it because that's the best song from that album, and I think that's the song where they utilize Vince Neil's vocal to his capabilities, because he does sound like him. That's a problem with this album. Sometimes the vocals sound like very buried in the mix for me. Like at least for Vince Neil's vocals. Vince Neil has never been like a great vocalist, and right now, if you see Motley Crue's clips and shows, yeah, they should fucking retire because they suck. They're playing terrible, and yeah, this album, besides Afraid and Generation Swine, there's like a punkiness to it that I enjoy, but it's not like I super love it. But it's not good, it's an album that doesn't know what it wants to be. And yeah, it sounds like a band that just had to put out an album to put it out to please the label. So again, I give it a thumbs down. So there you go. The three of us have voted and decided that Motley Crue Generation Swine is going down the toilet, and it's that bad. So we want to know from you, what did you think of Motley Crue Generation Swine? Comment what are the tracks that you think are the worst, or what tracks do you actually like and you think that we are maybe misjudging this album too harshly. And again, if you like the videos that we're putting out, do not forget to give us a like, and do not forget to subscribe. We have more Is It That Bad coming. We're actually going to review two more albums. We did a poll, and three albums were tied. So we decided first Motley Crue, but I think the other one was a Queensryche album, and I can't remember the other one. I have to look at the poll, but we'll do those ones on the future episodes. And please subscribe to Tom the Green Man's channel. He does uh, album reviews, movie and sci-fi, and he has the Shoegaze Files, which is a cool like a series that he has, and I'm on a couple of those videos. And JC Rock and Metal Reviews, you know, he's got the reviews, he's got the rankings, and he's got other stuff to his channel. So please subscribe to him. And of course, if you're watching this, also if you care to give me a sub, I would appreciate it very much, and I will give you a virtual hug. So until next time, people, this is Hector, the Shield on a Couch, and we'll see you next time for another Is It That Bad? Thank you and good night.